Dear students, this is me, Dr. SHIKHA Sharma, lecturer in English at Government Girls College, B.A. Today, I am going to talk about the sonnet on first looking into Chapman's Homer by John Keats. On first looking into Chapman's Homer is a sonnet composed by Romantic poet John Keats in October 1816 when he was only 20 years old. The inspiration for the poem came to Keats when he studied Homer's epic translated by George Chapman, a renowned Elizabethan literary figure. Homer was a famous Greek poet. Iliad and Odyssey are his two great epics. This sonnet was written when Keats was studying Spenser. Cowden Clarke gave him Chapman's translation of Homer's poetry. Keats read it through the night and wrote the sonnet in the morning and sent it to Clarke. This poem reveals the pleasure that Keats derived from Homer's work. Keats is a traveler in the world of imagination. He has made an extensive journey of the kingdom of great poets. The pleasure he derived through his study of literature cannot be described in words. He says that he has read many British poets. He has studied great poets like Spenser, Milton, and Shakespeare. He had heard about the Greek poet Homer, but he could not read his poetry as he did not know Greek. He knew that Homer was a great poet. He was pleased to learn that Chapman translated the works of Homer. He read Homer through translation. This sonnet is about Keats' venture into the reading of Chapman's translation of Homer. He is overly excited about his newfound knowledge and is a poet of experience and occasion. He writes about it as most of the Romantic poets used to express their feelings. Reading of Chapman has given him a distinct treasure, and this wonderful wealth has been kept from him until he read Chapman. Okay. Now come to the poem. On first looking into Chapman's Homer. Okay, this is a sonnet. Okay, what is sonnet? Sonnet is a short poem of 14 lines. Okay. Much have I travelled in the realms of gold, and many goodly estates and kingdoms seen. Round many western islands have I been, which bards in fealty to Apollo hold. Much have I travelled in the realms of gold. Realms of gold means poets and their poetry. And many goodly means delightful, estates and kingdom seen. Kingdom means great poets. Round many western islands have I been, which bards in fealty, bards means poets, in fealty, loyalty, to Apollo hold, Apollo, the god of poetry. The poet has been a traveler in the countries of the mind of imagination and fancy. He calls the great poets and their poetry as the realms of gold and goodly estates and kingdom. Metaphorically, literature is here described as golden realms. The poet says that he has visited many western islands which are ruled by poets under the sovereignty of Apollo, the god of poetry in Greek mythology. Means the poet Poets write under the inspiration from Apollo, means the compositions of the poets are inspired by Apollo. Apollo inspired them to write. Oft of one wide expanse had I been told that deep browed Homer ruled as his demands. Yet did I never breathe its pure serene till I heard Chapman's speak out loud and bold. Oft means often. Of one wide expanse. Expanse means rain of poetry. Had I been told that deep browed Homer, deep browed means having a high forehead, which is considered a sign of intellectual greatness. Kingdom, yet did I never breathe its pure serene till I heard Chapman's speak out loud and bold. Loud and bold means he hints that the translations by Chapman are better than others he might have read. Homer was a sublime poet. Though Keats had heard about this great personality, yet he had not had a chance to read him. He learned about Homer when he read Homer in the translation done by Chapman. The poet felt that he had seen a new kingdom in literature, full of fresh air and beautiful environment. Keats was greatly excited when he read Homer's poetry. Then felt I like some watcher of the skies when a new planet swims into his scan, or like stout Cortez when with eagle eyes he started at the Pacific and all his men looked at each other with a wild surmise, silent upon a peak in Darien. Or like stout means brave. Cortez means watcher of the skies. खगोल शास्त्री जिसे हम कहते हैं. When with eagle, okay, he started at the Pacific, gazed at the Pacific Ocean in wonder, okay, and all his men gazed at the Pacific Ocean in wonder because he had made a new and startling discovery. Okay, in these lines, the poet compares his feelings on reading Homer to the feelings of a great astronomer named Cortez when he discovered a new planet. This astronomer was looking at the sky through his telescope. Suddenly, he saw a new planet. He had never seen it before, and he was excited to see it. Similarly, Keats was greatly excited to read the sublime poetry of Homer. Cortez discovered the Pacific Ocean. He gazed at it with awe and surprise. His companions were also understruck at the new discovery. They silently looked at one another's face. They looked at the peak on the Isthmus Darien. Okay? The Isthmus of Panama is referred, it connects North and South America. Keats too was astonished when he read Homer. Okay, Keats was too astonished. He was really astonished when he read Homer. Actually, it was really very new and excited for him to read Homer, because he had never read Homer before. So he was very excited and keen after reading Homer, or to read Homer. In this line, the poet compares his feelings on reading Homer to the feelings of a great astronomer, okay, when he discovered a new planet. Okay, in this, what the poet wants to say in this poem actually? The sonnet also reveals Keats' passion for intellectual and literary pleasures derived from reading of ballads and romances of the olden times. While reading the romances, his imagination would apprehend them as real living events and incidents in the process of happenings. The opening lines of the sonnet state the poet's wide reading. The phrases, the realms of God, many goodly states and kingdom, and western islands are metaphors for the various kinds of legends and myths and romances the poet has been roaming about in. Keats is known to be a richly sensuous poet. His sensuousness is not merely related to living responses of the senses, but to imaginative apprehension as well. Keats had read plenty of literature. He had read the compositions of many poets who had drawn their inspiration from Apollo, the Greek god of poetry. He had heard of Homer's, but he had never read Homer's poetry till Chapman's translation of Homer. Keats found himself in a new world. The reading of the Iliad was great sensational discovery. It stirred in him the feelings of wonder and imagination. Okay. This sonnet is divided into two sections. Okay, octave and sestet. The first part is about the poet's own quest of learning and the encounter with Homer's work, the bridging of the gap between what he had heard and what he now experiences. The last section is a metaphorical expression of this experience. The most striking part of the sonnet is its vitality or force. This vitality comes not only from the imaginary of travels and adventures, but also from the choice of word order, coining of phrases. The opening word of the poem much immediately creates a sense of the speed, which is accelerated by then, which opens the sestet of the poem. The images are all fanciful and highly imaginative. The travel image is suggestive of spiritual restlessness, of the eternal quest for certainty and tranquility. As the poem progresses, the travel in the goodly state and kingdoms on the earth becomes travels into the vast empty space, pursuing the planets. Finally, it blends with the sense of triumph on conquering the space. The poet's feeling of wonder and his ecstatic joy are conveyed through the similes. The poet compares his state of mind with that of an astronomer who discovers a new planet in the sky. Okay, next, the poet compares his state of mind with that of Coates and his companions when they discovered the Pacific Ocean. Okay. The poem is a glowing tribute to the poetic genius of Homer. This poem is at the same time a tribute to the poetic genius of Chapman, who rendered the Greek epics into English with such conspicuous success. This sonnet is indeed a piece of literary appreciation in verse. Thank you.